So these are I think that when people do become a part of an organization, they work with one, they want to know what it's about, the values and the expressions and the vision and so forth. And so you guys can look at it now or later or whatever, but I do want it to be in your hands so that you guys know what InterVarsity is really all about. So it's really it's wonderful to see you all, though it's a little bit smaller of a crowd than what I was hoping for. And this will be my second sermon this year. I'm sorry, I mean large group talk. Sorry. Sorry. So I was actually gonna speak on some of the material on the paper, but under good advice, I just printed it out. And so some of you guys know that I'm a philosopher. That's what I do. I'm a philosophy major. And there's like a host of different understandings between how your mind relates to the world. And there's this one particularly radical view called solipsism. And solipsism says that you are the only thing that exists in the universe. It's just one mind. So about 100 years ago, there was a philosopher named Bertrand Russell, and for a short time he was himself a solipsist, and a woman took a liking to his philosophy, and she thought there was something to it, and so she wrote him a letter, and it had some distress expressed in it, and she said, you know, I really think that you might be something to it. I just wonder why there aren't any more of us. Okay.
I get it.
So
get it?
Now there's another philosopher. His name is Alvin Plantinga, and he's a Christian philosopher. Alvin Plantinga. There was one year that he was like the #1 American Christian Protestant philosopher. I mean, he's really good. So he actually found out that there was a solipsist in America, a real solipsist, as a professor. And so he met up with him, and apparently he treated Alvin nice, considering he was a figment of his imagination. But afterwards, he came up, Alvin encountered some of the solipsist's coworkers, and they said, you know, we treat our professor well because when he goes, we all go.
Oh, come on, guys, that was gold. That was gold.
So anyways, this talk I titled The Other L Word. If you guys saw it on the large group Facebook page. And the first time I gave a talk was about a month ago, and it was on love. Now, does anybody want to take a guess? Do any of you remember what love is?
I forgot.
Love is the willingness to benefit another.
Is at your own expense.
At your own expense.
Oh, perfect. The willingness to benefit another at your own expense. Perfect. I just wanted us to review that real brief. So, does anyone want to guess what they think the other L word is?
Liar.
Okay, liar, that bears? Yeah, Josh?
Loyalty.
Loyalty, okay. Anybody else?
I was figuring lust.
Lust. Sure, I was expecting that one.
According to the invite, but I thought it was laugh.
You thought it was laugh?
Because
you said comedy, yeah.
No, see, Dawn made it. I didn't make that up.
Oh.
I'm a funny guy sometimes, so maybe that's why she thought. But the word is actually leadership.
Okay.
That's the word. It's leadership. And so I'm not really going to talk too much about leadership as a whole, but there's a particular thing about leadership that I'm going to elaborate on. So let me just get into it. So. If you guys knew me when I was entering Brooklyn College, you would have known that I was unsure of my major, though I was sure of my calling to be a pastor, and I was also fairly immature. I'm sorry if you still may think I am. But if you knew me really well, you also would have known that I had great potential and was wasting it all away. And the reason is because I was engaged in a relationship that was time-consuming with with a girl who didn't know her purpose and didn't know the Lord. And I gave my life to Jesus right around the time that I entered high school, or a few years in, really. Now, the transition between then and entering college, I clung on to Jesus more or less, and sometimes I clung on to him more or much less. But I was recommended by my mentor, Minister Honorio, to check out InterVarsity, and I did. I remember seeing Christian at the first gig I went to. I signed up to the mailing list and so forth. But through my freshman year, I really did almost nothing in InterVarsity. And the reality is because I was in that relationship. And so I wasn't only stuck in bad habits, but I was spiritually stuck because I wasn't doing anything in any community of believers. And you know, InterVarsity has shown me that they weren't just a group of people who believed in Jesus. They believed in things like transformation and renewal and even changing the world, of course. But for a full year, out of total distraction, I was in a relationship emotionally attached, intellectually slow, and spiritually stagnant. So a year into my college experience, I had closed out what I thought was a successful academic freshman year, but I began my most difficult spiritual and emotional journey because throughout that freshman year, God was persistently calling me out of that relationship. And it really began something of a really difficult part. It began sort of tearing at me, and so I began speaking to Brunel and my mentor and looking for the Bible to see if maybe I could stay with this girl and still do all of the things that I really valued. But that obviously wasn't the case. If many of you know, I'm single now. So anyways, so I had left the girl after a year, and I began the most emotionally difficult part of my life. But make no mistake, because as soon as I let that hindrance go, I immediately became actually involved in InterVarsity. By mid-fall of that year, I was co-leading MSG, the men's small group, with Isaiah. By the following year, or the following term, I was small group coordinator. And believe me, many of the occasions and much of the time, I honestly didn't know what I was doing. But God was leading me semester by semester and season by season into greater things. And now I'm the vice president. So in 3 years, I've seen this chapter become a radically different one. And I'll tell you what I mean. When I joined this chapter, there were some small groups and Bible studies, and our chapter was, I think it peaked out at about 20 people. And a young man, many of us don't know right now, named Monte, was in his junior year. Yeah, Barris, you're familiar. And Brunel was, I think, only in his second year of staff working. So he himself was still being acquainted with the Brooklyn College chapter. SIG was launched in 2008 by an alumni member named Nikisha, and since then, SIG has become really a growing and consistent ministry for women. And so I want to show you right now a picture comparing 2008 to 2010, a full group of women. So the top one is 08, and the bottom one is 2010. That's some exponential growth in a couple of years.
No.
Sure.
That's around.
Why do we have to
So anyways.
It's
I hope I didn't like blow up anybody's weird image.
No. You can be one day one time.
No, fine. So anyways, so that's a huge difference. And there's more. Since I became active, we've begun open mics, initiated by our very own Yevgeniy. Thank you. And since we've had at least one open mic every semester since she brought up the idea, and many people inside and outside of the chapter have been able to benefit by serving there and also obviously performing. MSG, the men's small group, has been a consistent ministry since it was started around the same time SIG was. And last year, prayer was expanded from, I don't know what it was before, but it was expanded to Monday through Thursday in a ministry called DPM, or the Daily Prayer Meetings. Our large groups have also expanded from once a month to once a week. We've begun regular evangelism and have poured in contacts. I don't know if many of you noticed, but we have our own band. We also have a reasonable estimates 60 members, which is why I was hoping we'd get more. And all of this in 3 years, and what it showed me, the only real amazing conclusion I could draw was that God himself was working, and is working, on this campus. And so each of these developments, I think, happened when a person let something old go and exchanged it for something new. And maybe it was like old habits, or laziness, or something like that, or or maybe it was something deeper, but God has been inviting people to participate with him in this plan to minister on the college campus. And so I just want to ask you, what do you think it would look like if we needed 2 large groups weekly because the crowd, our participation was so vast? Or what would it mean if student government felt that they couldn't get anything done if they didn't ask for our participation in it? If we could have that kind of influence? What about if we got 50 conversions a year? Or even 100? In San Diego, there's a university, they average 200 every year. What if we're able to send everyone to Big Event in Basilea, no matter how big the chapter is, and cut out half the price for every person? What if InterVarsity was not 3 to 4 years away from extinction, as Brunel likes to remind us at the beginning of every school year? What if instead it was 10 years away from extinction? Because it was so well built to last, we could guarantee 2 generations of active presence on this campus. And I believe that the work God is doing right now is not only bigger than each one of us individually, but even bigger than this whole generation. And so, whatever it is, can I challenge you to put away the old and to exchange it for the new? So, if I don't go to the Bible, someone's going to say I did a bad job. So, in Matthew 4, 12 to 17, Jesus begins his teaching ministry. He begins preaching. And in Matthew 4, 18 to 22, Jesus meets Peter. So now it's on the board. Who would like to read it?
I need to make it bigger though.
Sure. Well, you can come up and you can just read right here. No.
Leave it like that?
Oh yeah, I guess you could you may want to. You want to back it up. That's good. That's good. That's fine. Yeah, so you can read from 18 down.
As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him.
Okay, that's fine. So Peter leaves behind his nets. And what Jesus has done is he has challenged Peter to leave behind his current vocation in exchange for a new one. Now this scripture, historically, in the timeline of Jesus' ministry, corresponds to Luke 4, verses 14 to 15. Now that little 2-center piece doesn't actually say anything about Peter, but it's a summary. And it seems, when you compare the gospel, that the timetable fits fairly well. And so you would expect, after Luke 4, 14 to 15, right, that you would not see Peter fishing anymore because in the same timetable, he has just dropped his nets. Now I'm going to load up Luke 5 and someone else can read that. That's really big. Anybody want to read this?
I will.
Okay.
One day as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of their boats, the one belonging to Simon Peter, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. And then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets."
Okay, great, that's perfect. So, like I said, you would expect to see Peter no longer fishing, and he just admits that he's been fishing all night. So, I kind of don't believe this guy, but at the same time, while it took him at least a pair of invitations to really receive the vocation Jesus was trying to call him into, at the same time, it took me about a year to sort of move on as well. And throughout Jesus' ministry, Peter makes so many obvious mistakes. He fails to understand parables that Jesus thinks the Jewish people should have normally understood. He denounced knowing Jesus in the last 12 hours. He angers Jesus sometimes in Gethsemane. He goes so far to slice off a man's ear in defense of Jesus. But look, we really have to understand that, you know, it was Peter who was, along with the sons of Zebedee, only 3 people who were able to join Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. That's the, you know, in Jesus' ministry up until the Passion narrative, that's an unprecedented event. Nothing like that has happened. It was also Peter, again along with the sons of Zebedee, who were able to join Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The other disciples didn't join. Jesus said he didn't want them seeing him that way. Now, just so you understand how serious Gethsemane is, there's a here. I'll pull up a link. It may have been deleted. So okay, so in Gethsemane, Luke records that Jesus was sweating blood. Now, back then they didn't know this, but there's a condition called hematidrosis, and what happens is that you become so stressed that your vessels dilate, and then they contract, I think, and blood ends up spurting through into your sweat glands. Now, I'm pretty sure some of us have been extremely stressed out, and so imagine it being perhaps 10 times more. It is an extremely difficult emotional time. And still he allows Peter to be only one of the 3 people in history to ever see him. So, oh yeah, not to mention Peter is the rock on which the church is built on. And Peter is also blessed enough to contribute to a divinely inspired text. So my whole point with this is that when we look at Peter, sure, he would have been a great fisherman, and surely he makes tons of mistakes along the way, being trained up for 3 years. But when it all comes to, you know, the most important things, Jesus allowed Peter to be there, and he allowed almost no one else to be there. Peter is a unique individual, and he was allowed to be that because he put away the old and took on the new. So soon we'll actually be sending an application for our roles in the next semester. And there are like a lot of ways to serve. So the L word I said is leadership, and the greatest leaders, guys like John Maxwell or Bill Hybels, they all believe that vision is at the heart of a leader. In fact, Hybels says in page 31 of Courageous Leadership, he says if you take away vision from a leader, you will take out his or her heart. So it's important to understand that just the way Jesus and his disciples were not a club, InterVarsity Christian Fellowship is not a club. Jesus and his movement and his disciple were a ministry just like we're a ministry. They're a movement just like we're a movement. And they were active, bold, and contagious, and courageous, and at a constant practice of renewing themselves. And I want you all to think about your own leadership gifts, your leadership styles, your talents and abilities. What is it that breaks your heart on this campus? What do you want to see happen? Or what does happen that you wish wouldn't? It could be anything. There is no vision too small. But what would you like to see done on campus? Now finally, the theme of these large groups for this year was choices. And so that's what I am bringing to you. That's what is at hand. It's a choice. And so if there's a core message with what I'm saying, it's this, that living life in Christ is a process of renewal, that we grow in levels and arrive at new stages of life. And at every new stage of life, there are new challenges for us. Jesus knew it, Peter knew it, Brunel knows it, and I know it. So I ask that you pray about serving with this ministry as God works to reach the students, the faculty, and the campuses in America, and God may even call you to minister to change the world. Thank you.